just put into a museum and left alone. And we from one end to the other, they're perfect. Internally and so on, perfect. Well, the bike's interesting in both respects. A guy called Peter Inchley was Chief Development Engineer on the Villiers engines at Villiers. And he wanted to go racing on one of the company's products. So he was very involved in the development of the Star Maker, as we all know it. But because he didn't want to offend any of the customers of the company, he put the engine into a Voltaco 125 TSS frame, and that kept the neutrality of the thing. He then raced it extremely successfully, starting in 1964-65. In 65, he was 5th in the British Championship with the bike. In 1966, he won the British Championship on the 250s. He was 3rd in the TT, the actual TT, behind 2 Honda 6s of Mike Hillwood and Stuart Graham. And he also won the Southern 100 that year, and I think I said the British Championship, along with many, many wins and podiums. And he raced a lot against a guy called Reg Everett, whom a lot of people here will know and remember with great affection. And he was part of the takeover when Manganese Bronze bought Villiers and bought AJS. And they wanted to continue to support Peter in the development of the Star Maker engine, so he insisted that he wanted to keep racing. He raced it in 1970 in the TT also. So masses and masses of history. And in 1966, it was the first British 250 on a podium since 1950. Holds the record as the fastest British 250 two-stroke ever around the Isle of Man. In 1966, it averaged 92.67 miles an hour, which was quite going. But they took it after the 66 TT to Mallory and rode it against the Hondas and so on there at the Mallory 1000 bikes thing, the post TT as we knew it. And at the end of the straight, the 2 Hondas were at 14 miles an hour faster than that bike and faster than the TD1A Yamahas. So right up against it. I reckon he just didn't use the brakes in the TT.
Can you tell us, Will, how many of that model were actually produced?
One, that's it.
Oh, it's a complete and utter prototype, a one-off.
Yeah, absolutely. The factory did think of replicating it like Greaves had done with the Silverstone and Cotton and DMW and so on, sold them as over-the-counter bikes. But the TD Yamahas had come in and taken over, and they realized they were too little too late. So they didn't do it. They built one prototype show bike, but it never went anywhere. So that is the one and only. Yeah.
And the question is, how were you fortunate enough to obtain it? How did it come into your hands, Will?
Well, I mentioned Reg Everett a moment ago, and Reg was a dear friend, famous for being the man who actually invented the Greaves Silverstone. And that too started off as a special. That was the Greaves Special, he called it. The factory were not very helpful or supportive, but in the end they did give him a scrambler engine.